Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. My name is Emily. I'm the Education Coordinator for the Explore Outdoors program. Today I am in between Walker's Pond and the Bagaduce River in Brooksville, and I am at a fish ladder looking for alewives. Alewives are also known as river herring, and they're only one of the many migratory species of fish that we can see currently making their way from their homes in the ocean to their spawning grounds in fresh water. So we can learn a bit more about these alewives and their migrations. I'm going to be reading this book called Swimming Home by Susan Hand Shetterly, illustrated by Rebekah Raye. Pesca raced through the ocean with the other alewives in her school as winter winds whipped the water into steep waves and sleet fell. They were hunting tiny animals that drifted in clusters, sometimes near the surface of the water, and sometimes deeper where the light was dim. The alewives swam fast and close together. Often they looked like one big fish flashing silvery scales. But there were many fish with gray-green backs, silver bellies, and sharp tails. Behind the curve of the gill covers on each side, they were marked with a small, dark spot. When spring came and the full moon shone down, shadows of birds moved across it. The birds were flying north. Pesca in her school felt something pulling them. It was Lily Lake, where they had hatched from eggs in water that was not salty like this ocean water, but sweet and muddy. The year before, in a springtime much like this one, Pesca, the oldest and biggest alewife, had led her school back to Lily Lake to spawn, their eggs drifting down to the bottom. Now she would do it again. Slowly they turned and headed north with the birds, as alewives before them had done for thousands of years. They joined other schools of alewives, making one enormous, glittering school. Ahead of them, going the same way, raced a pod of porpoises. A humpback whale rose out of the water and splashed down as they hurried beneath its huge shadow. But soon, Pesca and her school left the other alewives and swam on their own toward a cove where the familiar smell of Lily Lake wound through the water like a wide ribbon. A boy out with his father in a rowboat leaned over the side and noticed sudden, bright, bold flashes of silver. First one, then another, and then dark backs. "Dad," he said, "the alewives are here." They watched a harbor seal chase the fish. Pesca and her school dashed from the seal and flashed past the rowboat, tracking the ribbon of lake water to the mouth of Lily Stream. To reach Lily Lake, the alewives would have to fight their way up the stream, flooded with snow melt and spring rain, but they weren't quite ready yet to enter it. When they came to it, they circled back into the cove. "Years ago, when your father was a boy," the boy's father said as he rowed, "he'd come to Lily Stream in May with a dip net and fish for alewives with his dad. They'd salt them and put them into a smokehouse they built on the bank right over there. They used wood chips to make the smoke. Your grandfather said nothing tasted as good as a freshly salted, smoked alewife." "Why don't we do that?" the boy asked. "There aren't enough left anymore. Now every fish that returns needs a chance to spawn." The next day, when the tide was high and the salt water in the cove rose against the water of the stream, the alewives were ready. Pesca plunged in, ducking between two giant rocks. She shimmied one way, she shimmied another. The other alewives followed beside her. Up they went, darting past rocks and sunken logs. When one of them spotted a bald eagle flying overhead, he swerved behind a log, and all the other alewives scattered and hid. The bird dropped from the sky. It splashed into the stream and rose again, its talons empty. It shook itself and flew away, and the alewives continued their journey. Once Pesca hung in a slow eddy between two sticks, but they were not sticks. They were long, thin legs of a great blue heron. When the bird saw Pesca, it stabbed its beak into the water. Just before it grabbed her, she shot upstream again. The alewives arrived at a deep pool. They would not eat while they made their way to Lily Lake, but here they rested, fanning their tails back and forth in the quiet water.
They began again and didn't stop until they reached a beaver dam that stretched from bank to bank before them. Over the top of the dam skimmed a sheet of water, and water poured through the gaps where branches and stones and mud had come loose. One by one, thrashing their tails, the alewives turned sideways and skimmed over the top, or they wiggled through the open spaces in the dam. They swam slowly in the beaver pond beside the round dome of the lodge. 2 beavers sat on the lodge, gnawing the bark of green saplings and watching the fish as rain began to fall. Raindrops puckered the surface of the water. Night fell. The rain slowed, then stopped. A barred owl called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 ah." When the sun rose, the alewives started upstream again. Ahead of them, they heard a clattering noise that shook the banks. As they got closer, the sound grew louder. A brand new road ran across Lily Stream. Over it, cars sped. Under the road, a pipe lay on a pile of stones. The lovely water of Lily Lake poured through it and splashed down into the stream. People who set the pipe under the road had forgotten about the alewives. The fish shimmied and jumped. They slid and skidded. They somersaulted and backflipped, but they could not reach the pipe. Pesca and her school had come a long way. They had escaped the seal and the bald eagle and the great blue heron, but if they couldn't swim through that pipe, they couldn't get to Lily Lake, though it was just on the other side of the road. Pesca rushed again at the falling water. It tossed her back. She tried again. This time, the water flipped her sideways into a puddle on the bank. Another alewife fell next to her. They twisted and flapped, but they were stuck. That was when the boy and his father, who had seen the alewives in the cove, came along the stream bank looking for the fish. "There they are," said the boy. "But the pipe's too high for them. Let's help these 2 first," said father. "Get your hands wet so you don't hurt their skin, and be careful. People don't call them sawbellies for nothing. The scales on their bellies are sharp." The boy dipped his hand into the stream Gently, he lifted Pesca and carried her across the road. He held her in the water of the lake. Pesca moved a little, took a breath, then another. She fanned her tail back and forth. She felt a surge of life, twisting out of the boy's hands and darting away as the alewife had fallen beside her, swam from the father's hands. When they finished, the boy and his dad sat by the shore. They looked out over the water. They couldn't see the alewives, but they knew the fish were there. "The trouble is, more will be coming," the father said, putting his arm around his son's shoulders. "I'm not sure what we'll do about them." "Neighbors will help us," the boy said. "We can all bring buckets to carry the alewives across the road." "That's a good idea. You know, we saved some special fish today, and I bet right now they're celebrating." The boy laughed. "Dad, do fish really celebrate?" Just then, Pesca broke the water surface in a flash of the most beautiful silver. She flipped her tail high, like the wave of a hand, and disappeared with all of the other alewives deep into Lily Lake.